day, I'm Dr. T and welcome to my office. So today I'd like to talk a bit about radiation safety. Okay, so if you are working with radioactive materials, one, this should not be your only training. This is the brief introduction, and so make sure you get familiar with your organization's protocols for safe handling of radioactive materials. You probably really should have some kind of certification for that. Most organizations will require that because, you know what, you gotta respect this stuff. First thing to mention when dealing with radioactive materials is that you are always dealing with radioactive materials. The sun is giving off radiation. The rocks around you will give off small amounts of radiation. At tiny quantities, your body can deal with it. But at higher quantities, then long-term damage can start occurring, and even higher quantities, short-term damage can occur. So you're going to be working with something radioactive. You've got a couple of things to keep in mind. First off, simply while working with it, you want to limit the amount of radiation that actually hits you. This is not good stuff. It's not beneficial to you. Your body can deal with some of it. That doesn't mean it wants to. So when dealing with radiation, you've got really three options to limit it. First, you can put something between you and it. That something typically needs to have lots of nice nucleuses for it to run into. This is called shielding. Now, depending on how much space you have to put stuff in between you and it, depends on what you can use for shielding. Lead works wonderfully. Giant nucleus, really good at absorbing radiation. It blocks it beautifully. Lead's a little bit expensive, so if you want a cheaper option, but don't mind getting something a little bit thicker, then you could go for things like concrete or even water. You're going to need to go, instead of centimeters of lead, you're going to need to go feet or many feet worth of concrete or water. But, hey, if you don't mind building a building that looks like a bunker, that's fine. And, you know, if you look at a nuclear power plant, hey, you probably want to build it like it looks like a bunker because, you know, just in case some idiot tries to hurt you. So yeah, first choice, or first step is you put something between you and the radioactive source. Next thing, simply limit your exposure, limit your time. Don't be engaging with the thing for a long period of time. Do what you need to do and put it back. Limiting time is a great way of limiting radiation. It's coming at you at, you know, a certain rate, depending on whatever that thing is you're working with. The longer you're with it, the more it's going to hit you. So, work and be done. The third approach is to stay as far away from it as possible. Radiation, whether it be ionizing radiation, which is really what I'm talking about in this case. You know, your cell phone emits non-ionizing radiation. That's not going to hurt you. But ionizing radiation, one that has enough power to kick electrons off, that's what we're currently worried about. Now, with ionizing radiation, like all other forms of radiation, like visible light, it spreads out with the inverse square law. So, the farther away you are, the amount you're going to get hit with it drops off drastically. So, keep your distance. With radioactive things, though, to be honest, in many respects, working with them is not the real risk. It's hygiene that is the real risk. What you don't want to be doing is taking the radioactive material and slopping it everywhere and then tracking it and keeping it with you. Acute exposure is usually not a big deal unless you get a lot of radiation. Chronic exposure ends up becoming the real problem. The way you get chronic exposure is you start dragging this radioactive stuff all over the place. You wear gloves. You don't take the gloves off when you need to and dispose of them. Instead, you go handle the doorknob, and now all of a sudden the doorknob is radioactive. Or, heaven forbid, you manage to ingest or inhale the stuff, and now it's in you. You have no distance. You have no shielding, and it's there as long as it wants to be. So when you're dealing with radioactive materials, the really thing you've got to worry about, not just kind of the standard threat of it emitting radiation, which you do, but by maintaining proper hygiene, keeping it where it needs to be and not slopping it all over the place. So with that said, have a wonderful day and be safe.